Hey golfers, it's Dave from Fit2U Golf. If you watched my first video of my review of Dante's 4 magic moves, you know that at my first try of doing it, I found that it worked really well with irons, but I had a lot of wrist pain. And since then, that was about 2 years ago, I've done another read through the book, and I realized that I missed a couple things. I was underdoing some things and overdoing others. So I'm going to walk through the 4 steps with a little bit more detail in case you're interested in these 4 magic moves and how to perform it. And then I'll talk about how it's affecting my ball striking with irons, which is really where I'm using it so far. And maybe down the road I'll do some updates, because I am kind of committing myself to working on this in the off season to improve my ball striking. So the first thing that I got wrong and was kind of underdoing was the grip. Dante advocates he insists on a kind of a neutral to weak grip, 2 knuckles only in the left hand, and also a kind of a finger palm grip. When you grip the club, you grip it so that the club shaft goes diagonally from the first section of the index finger down below the first section of the pinky finger, so that there's a little kind of flap of flesh there when you grip the club. I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but this is a 2-knuckle grip when you look down on it, and it does run somewhat into the palm, not deeply into the palm, but the reason for that becomes clear in a minute, because it helps with the first magic move, which is the backward wrist break and downward thumb press. Before, when I tried this, I was overdoing the grip in terms of making it a little too strong and too much in the fingers, and that allowed me anyway, to bend my wrist too far back, and I think that's where I got some of the pain. So the first magic move is the backward wrist break with downward thumb press. So basically, right from the start, there's a forward press, and then right into that move. So it looks like this. When you look down, you see 1 knuckle on your left hand and 2 knuckles on your right. The second magic move is simply just taking this wrist condition and turning. And I think Dante was a bit ahead of his time in this, because there's a lot of talk now about the wrist at the top, flat wrist, bow wrist, shallowing the club. And when you take the club back like this, it's already shallow. You have some width with a straight left arm. And that leads to the next magic move, which is a lateral bump of the hips. Now, this is one of the things that I was overdoing when I tried this. Dante was basically advocating a weight shift here, making sure we got to our lead side, in my case, my left side, and not being worried about turning the hips. He says in the book, yes, of course, your hips will turn, but he didn't want you to focus on that, because too many golfers, before they've shifted their weight, will turn and spin out their hips. When I was trying this before, I was really trying to do this, and yes, it gets your head behind the ball, which is one of the things that Dante advocates, but it was exaggerated. So, and I'll show some swings in a little bit, and hopefully I demonstrate this. What I really just focus on now is just shifting. And then that allows the 4th magic move, which is the conservation of angular momentum. Now, there's some debate online about whether Dante was using the proper term here. I'm not going to try and get into that debate. I will say that what he was talking about was the similar concept to a figure skater, so that when the figure skater turns and keeps their arms in close to the axis, they spin faster, versus if the club or the skater's arms are out, it's slower. So the idea here was to hold this with the backward wrist break right down to impact. And that'll give you the position of a flat left wrist, nice ball compression, good ball flight. He also used the metaphor of cracking a whip. So basically you're taking all this energy and then transferring it to the bottom of the club. So I'll put up a couple of swings here from face on, which I think shows most of what you want to see, and also from down the line. And again, I'm just working on this, but this is really helping me in terms of compressing the ball, getting a little bit more open at impact, rotating my shoulders better. And you know, the proof is in the pudding. If you've been following my videos about my swing, you know that last winter I worked really hard to get my ball striking, my smash factor, to a 1.3 with a 7-iron, which is, you know, not that great, but it had been much worse. And with this, just so far practicing for a couple of weeks, I'm finding that I'm getting that or better in terms of smash factor with a 7-iron. Now, the times I've tried this with the driver, it has not worked well. I tend to hit it low on the heel. I suspect that I'm not rotating enough to make that happen, but I'll work on that in the off season. As I said, hopefully post some updates of that. So anyway, let me know what you think. If you have tips for me, if you've studied this method, let me know. I'm a big fan of this. As I said before, I think Joe Dante was ahead of his time in terms of understanding parts of the swing that are, you know, kind of all the rage now. So post your comments below. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and try this out and stay positive.